Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it.
Lily sat on the train with her back against the wall and her eyes closed. She was tired, and the fatigue that came on her out of the blue bothered Lily a lot. She, who was used to working 20 hours a day, able to move between cities without sleep or rest, lecturing on her feet and not feeling any pain or swelling in them, suddenly became lethargic and constantly felt only one desire: to sleep. Maybe I should go to a doctor, Lily thought to herself, yawning and lazily looking out the window at the twinkling scenery. She was uncomfortable with the feeling of tiredness and brokenness. She had been feeling tired and broken for the past 2 weeks, and more often the thought flashed through her mind that she should have taken a break and worked less. As luck would have it, she'd gotten the top shelf on the train, and to climb up and sleep in an uncomfortable position. All the time, afraid of falling, Lily did not want to. Her roommate, who was supposed to sleep in the same place where Lily was sitting, had already hinted several times that she wouldn't mind lying down and sleeping until morning. And Lily didn't have the strength to get up from her seat and then climb upstairs. Maybe we could switch with you, Lily suggested, not really hoping for success. I'm terrified of the top shelves, and it was one of the last ones. I shouldn't have. What happened to Lily that she suddenly stopped being interested? Lily didn't want to eat breakfast on the train. For some reason, she had no appetite, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, she was tired again, which made her dizzy and awfully sleepy. What's happening to me? Lily wondered. And she watched her neighbor in the carriage, who was eating a huge cheese sandwich, then ate 2 apples, and then drank lemonade from a glass bottle. The mere thought that it was possible to eat it all and not burst. Lily was outraged. She pulled her notebook out of her travel bag, boiled down her lecture schedule once more, and figured out which days would be best to take a train ticket. Lily taught English history courses at various universities. She commuted between 5 cities and combined her work as a teacher and English tutor. She liked her job, and most of all, she liked the fact that she could move between cities, meet different people, and get a good salary. Her husband David worked as an ordinary engineer, a designer in an ordinary design office where he worked on residential building projects in their hometown. David didn't like the fact that his wife's job involved constant traveling, and he told his wife that on more than one occasion, "David, but what am I going to do if English history is a very rare subject for which our university is not willing to pay much? So I have to go back and forth between several jobs to make money. I earn enough," replied the husband. Well, Lily disagreed. She thought that her husband could have long ago worked in some private office, which in the city appeared every year more and more. But David preferred the civil service. And as you know, it didn't pay very well. "As long as you think you're making enough," Lily said to her husband at the time, "I'll be away from home for a few days at a time. That way we won't have to put our teeth on the shelf." "You're exaggerating," David objected. "You think we don't have enough money, but that's only the feeling of someone who doesn't have enough all the time. You go to pieces just to have a lot of money. You're making me grovel and grovel to my bosses so I can get a chance at a promotion. I'm not gonna do that. And I'm not gonna grovel to anybody." "You're confusing humiliation with having a productive conversation with your superiors," Lily replied. Although at first she wanted to take offense at her husband, who thought she was some kind of monster in a skirt. If you learn to prove your point, argue with them, and look in their eyes as an indispensable employee, you can go up the career ladder. For example, your coworker Andrew did it. How are you any worse? "Andrew just had a good marriage," David said. And he wrinkled his nose as if he'd eaten a sour lemon. "His wife is the daughter of the head of our design office. That's why Andrew's career took off immediately. I'm not in danger of that, because our boss doesn't have any more daughters." Lily took offense at her husband's words, but didn't let it show. Let David think so. But she, Lily, had meant something else when she talked about career advancement and possible ways to increase their income. She and David had been married for almost 5 years. They met at a birthday party for a friend of Lily's where she had invited some of her young man's available friends, so that the loose friends would not be so bored at the party. That's how the acquaintance of Lily and David happened. And then it seemed to the girl that she met a really worthwhile man. David could reason intelligently. He was well-read and a very interesting conversationalist. Lily couldn't wait to meet him again, and she was glad that a spark had passed between them. It was rare for her to meet someone who could be so interesting and attractive at the same time. Therefore, Lily couldn't help but be excited about this encounter. A couple months later, he introduced his friend to his parents, and Lily realized that this was a serious stage in their relationship. David wasn't the kind of guy to introduce his family to everyone. David's mother said of Lily in general that Lily was so far the only girl their son had introduced his family members to. This woman told Lily in confidence, and Lily realized that David didn't want her to think of their relationship as anything out of the ordinary just yet. Yes, he liked her and she liked him, but that was where it ended for now. "You introduced me to your parents and sister," Lily said cautiously. After Sunday dinner at David's family, "Is that serious enough or not?" David shrugged his shoulders. "In general, everything I do is serious enough. Even the fact that I'm walking you home right now is serious too, because I'm worried about you. What if someone attacks you? What if somebody wants to hurt you? And I'll be here and I'll protect you." Lily laughed. "So you're my protector?" "Actually, I'd like to be more than a protector," David said, embarrassed. Lily decided to take the initiative, wrapped her arms around David's neck, and then kissed him passionately, putting all her feelings and emotions into the kiss. And she had a lot of them. David was taken aback, but responded to the kiss readily. It was their first kiss after 2 months of talking, having fun and going out together. All in all, the couple's relationship was starting to gain momentum, and Lily could tell that she was happy around this guy. After the kiss, there was a lull, and it was as if David was waiting for another dose of initiative from Lily. She agonized because she wanted to continue their communication, his transition to the next level. But for some reason, the guy was in no hurry to do so. It was as if he had passed all the reins of power into female hands, refusing to show the proper male initiative. Lily was bitter and resentful. She wanted something more, but she realized that she could hardly expect David to make any moves in her direction. It was her idea to have a romantic dinner at her friend's apartment. Lily's parents lived in another city, and she was studying and working in Manchester, where she rented a room in a dormitory. But she didn't dare to invite David there. It was too modest for her dwelling to organize there the first night of love together. David arrived with a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of champagne, and Lily felt a little better. Did he really understand why she had invited him over for a dinner of chicken and cucumber salad and Candace crab meat? Lily accepted the champagne and flowers with a smile, seated Davida at the table, but it was as if the conversation wasn't flowing. Lily couldn't figure out what the problem was. David stammered, made unfunny jokes, and was not himself. So Lily went back to work, rolling up her sleeves and asking David to dance to music from her friend's Chinese tape recorder. They drank a couple glasses of champagne each and relaxed a little thanks to that. It was Lily who kissed David again, and he returned her kiss. She was the one who undressed first and then watched the young man's reaction for a long time. The girl realized that she was David's first, but she didn't say anything to him or laugh at him. Everything went almost calmly, except that David was a little nervous, and with this, he constantly confused Lily. He was a good lover, not very experienced, but diligent. Since then, Lily had always taken the initiative. Even after she and David had become officially husband and wife, Lily hadn't always enjoyed the role of head of the household. She was the one who always earned more. She was the one who strove for development. She was the one who got her and David their own apartment. And she was the one who was able to save money to renovate the apartment. David just gratefully accepted the fruits of Lily's labor, did not participate in anything, but he always wanted his opinion to be listened to and considered. Lily tried to be a good wife. She was an excellent cook. The house was always in order. She wanted to have children, which she told David many times. She also made sure to listen to his opinions. David liked that. He couldn't help but like it. After all, that's what he wanted from his life partner. But David did not know what feelings lurked in the soul of his wife, what thoughts she visited more and more often, and how difficult it was for her to play the role of a beautiful wife, knowing that her husband is not really trying to be a good husband, She was tired of always taking the initiative in everything. Lily was tired of being the leading lady who dragged her wingman around in the form of David. She wanted her husband to be a serious, confident, and determined man, but David was different. Always doubting, not sure of himself, and at the same time expecting from loved ones that they will necessarily reckon with his opinion, the only correct opinion. Lily was often angry with her husband, displeased with him. She was angry with David, but she had never once told her husband about it out loud, preferring to keep it all to herself. Maybe if she had talked to David, explained to him what did not suit her in the marriage, then there would not have been another man in Lily's life. So much of how Lily felt and how she behaved came from her childhood. She was raised in a family where her mother put up with a lot, allowing too much to her husband. Lily's father was a weak man, weak with both alcohol and women, but the mother forgave her husband everything, gave him new chances to make things right. And he kept promising his wife that soon everything would be different, but it never happened. "Mom, how can you stand the way your father treats you?" Lily kept asking, looking into her mother's weeping face. Whether the tears were the result of her husband's infidelity or his abuse, Lily did not know, but she saw that her mother was unhappy with her father. "I love him, daughter," Joan answered. "I love him too much to dare to pack up and leave him." "I would," Lily said confidently, and she was becoming more and more like her own mother every day. Later, when she married David, Lily repeated the same mistakes her mother had made, except that David wasn't much like Lily's father. He didn't abuse alcohol, and he also never dared to raise his hand to Lily. "I would have left too," Lily answered Joan, "if I had the strength and courage, but I don't have it, so I can't do such a desperate act." "Mom, it's not a desperate act," said Lily. "You're in agony with him. You're suffering. You're already living in despair with him. I don't understand how you have so much strength and patience." Perhaps it really was love, a woman's love for a man, boundless and meaningless, just like her parents liked together, who married early, became parents early. Then out of habit they lived with each other and tolerated each other's antics. Joan, of course, tolerated more. Fred, on the other hand, let himself get away with too much. When the man fell ill, Lily thought that the moment of reckoning had come. Joan could have left the sick and helpless man behind, but she chose not to. She took care of him, spent the last of her money on expensive imported drugs, but pulled him practically from the other side of the world. How much effort, time, and money had been spent to get Fred back on his feet? Lily marveled at her mother's dedication to her love for this man who never appreciated his wife's efforts, and after recovery gradually returned to the same lifestyle he had led before he collapsed due to illness. Joan became depressed, apart from the fact that she herself was not feeling her best. After putting so much effort and time into getting her husband well, she also hadn't expected Fred to stab her in the back like this. She had hoped for a new life for them. Her husband had promised her that. He'd sworn that after his illness, he'd never allow himself to do the things he'd done before. But it was only a few months after his recovery when the man went back to his old ways. "Mama, I want to feel sorry for you," Lily said to her mother, "but at the same time, I wish you'd get your mind right. How could you be so humiliated, so low for the sake of this man? He does not put you in anything, take advantage of your kindness, and he's acting." "Shut up," said the mother in despair. "It's not for you to judge your father and not for me. Let him live the way he wants to live. It's his right and his choice." Lily couldn't believe her ears. Her mother was almost 40. She was still a young woman who could have found another man, but she preferred to be with Fred, who cheated on her, insulted her, and forgot all the good things his wife had done for him. "Mother, what is your right? Or did you choose this life and you are completely satisfied with it?" Lily wanted to figure it out because in her 15 years, she couldn't understand what kept the person dearest to her next to a monster, ruining her whole life. Lily wanted justice, and when her father fell ill, it seemed to the girl that justice prevailed. However, it did not happen for long. "I am satisfied with everything that happens in my life," coldly Joan replied. "And if I find it necessary to forgive my father and accept him as he is, then it is my choice and my decision." Lily never questioned her mother again, but she realized that for Joan the most important thing was to sacrifice herself. Well, if that was the life she wanted, then let her mother live it. But everything changed that day when a woman appeared on the doorstep of the family home. Lily answered the door, and the stranger said she was here to see Joan. "Come in." Lily led the woman into the apartment, not even paying attention to the fact that the woman was curiously examining their furnishings, as if evaluating them. When Joan saw the guest, she turned pale. Lily was even frightened for her mother. The woman looked distraught and upset at the sight of the stranger. Lily immediately realized that this woman was very familiar to her mother. "Why did you come here?" Joan asked through gritted teeth. "Why the hell, Lily, did you let that creep into our house?" "Mom, I don't know who it is. She said I came to you and let her in." Joan grinned nervously. A shadow ran across her face. "Then let's get acquainted. This is your father's mistress, the one he's been seeing for over 3 years. And the one," the stranger added, interrupting Joan, who was expecting a child with him. Lily went cold. Then she glanced at her mother, who was completely confused and stood in the middle of the room, shifting silently from foot to foot. It was a blow below the belt, but the stranger who delivered this blow looked confident and arrogant. "Have you no shame?" Joan exploded. "You came here for what? To make a scandal, to show off. I came here to tell you that you won't keep Fred with you. He'll be with me, and we'll raise our child together." Lily stood as if she'd been stunned by a heavy bag of rocks. Was her father really capable of such meanness to leave her mother, who had endured so much with him, and to live with this young and opinionated person who announced her pregnancy, and now also claims to take her father's man and husband out of the family? Lily became uncomfortable. She felt pity for her mother, but at the same time she was suffocated by hatred for her father, for the man who had traded family well-being for the joy of being with his mistress. "Get out of here," Lily shouted, then lashed out at her father's mistress, whose name she never learned. She put her hands out in front of her, defending herself. She laughed like a mad woman. A wave of hatred and contempt swept over Lily. She wanted to tear out her hair, scratch her eyes out, strangle her, but not let her celebrate her victory. "She's my protector." The young woman laughed and pushed Lily, who was attacking her. "You better protect your father from your mother. She's got her claws in him. He's not her prey. My man will be with me, not that one." "Father, that's my mother's husband," Lily screamed. "And you are nothing. You're a stranger who's come into someone else's territory and you're making a big deal out of it. Who are you?" "A doormat. Your mother's a doormat." Lily and her father's mistress got into a huge fight. It was only Fred, who got home from work in time to break up two people who were ready to kill each other. And only Joan sat in the kitchen and cried quietly, realizing that the family was at an end. That night, Fred packed up his things and left home. "I love Oxy," he said penitently. He was embarrassed to look his daughter in the eye. "Lily, understand me. I've loved her for years. She's expecting my child. I can't be with your mother anymore, and she still won't let me go." "Mama loves you," Lily said quietly, feeling more sorry for her own mother than anything else in the world, abandoned by her beloved husband, who turned out to be a traitor. "She forgave you everything. Only she was there for you when you were sick. Only she forgave you everything and put up with everything. No more forgiving and tolerating." Fred interrupted his daughter. "Stop going through all this every day. Let me and my mother try to be happy. Your mother is 40 years old. She's still young and can find another man. I've already found my woman." Lily cried quietly, but she realized she couldn't change anything. Her father was gone, her mother was alone, and it was necessary to pull her out of the pit she had fallen into because of her crazy attachment to a man who didn't deserve such treatment. The daughter was sure that her mother could not bear the blow and would make every attempt to bring her husband back into the family. But Joan would not do so. She let her husband go, filed for divorce herself through the court, kept her own apartment, and Fred moved in with Oxy. And soon they had a son. Lily never saw her brother again until he was 5 years old. And in all that time, Lily never once spoke to her own father. Fred remained for her a traitor, a pathetic weakling who traded family happiness for the joy of being with his mistress. The man married Oxy before her son was born, and Lily realized their family would never be reunited. Joan went on with her life, and soon enough, she had a new man. For Lily, having another man as a mother was a real blow. Lily herself did not understand why she was so much worried that Joan's personal life began to improve. After all, Lily herself wanted it so badly. The girl wanted her mother to be happy. But when she learned that Joan had a young suitor who was barely 33, Lily was confused for some reason. "Mom, are you sure this is the man for you?" Lily asked. "I'm not sure for my mother." "Daughter, I'm so happy," Joan replied in a blissful voice. "I've never felt so good before. Brad makes me happy, but he's younger than you. You can't even have a baby with him." Joan frowned. "Why can't I? I'm only 42 years old. I can still have a baby, be a mother for the second time." "Mom, I'm 18 years old. Why do you need more children? I'm not enough for you. I just want to make Brad happy." Once again, Joan was talking about men's happiness, and her own was being sidelined. Lily realized that she liked the role of victim very much. Her mother liked it so much that she was willing to sacrifice herself to make the man next to her happy for two. Brad seemed suspicious of Lily. He was good-looking, worked as a furniture assembler in one of the largest furniture factories in the city, and made a good living. And it was not at all clear what attracted him to a woman who was 12 years older than he was. Lily's disposition Brad wasn't looking for. He met the daughter of his chosen one and simply introduced himself to Lily, not trying to impress her. The girl did not like this very much because she thought that the man of the mother had to seek her favor to please his chosen one. "Mother, don't you want to be happy yourself?" asked Lily. "You're always trying to do everything to please men, and you forget about yourself. I think that's your mistake." "Even if it is a mistake, it's mine, not yours," said Joan. "It has nothing to do with you, so please stay out of my life. You stay out of your father's life. Stay out of mine. You should be out there, studying, enjoying your life." Lily was struck by her mother's words. The girl's opinion was of no interest to her mother, father, or anyone else. Lily, on the other hand, only wanted to tell her parents, but each of them was busy with their own lives. That's when she decided that she too would take care of her personal life, as her own mother had advised her. And that's when Lex came into Lily's life. It wouldn't have been anything if it hadn't been for one very important thing. Lex was married. His wife was pregnant with their second child, but that didn't bother her or Lex. The girl wanted to forget about family troubles, so she fell into the arms of the first man who appeared on her path. And that man was Lex. He was 28, Lily was 18, and Lex became her first man. The girl didn't realize how it happened that she fell in love with a married man and let him get so close to her, allowing herself more than just companionship. Lily had met Lex by chance, too. He was a student at their university, visiting in absentia and occasionally. And on one of those rare visits, he met a pretty student at the schedule. "What a lovely day it is today," he said. And Lily did not even immediately realize that these words were addressed to her. She looked at the man with an indifferent look, and then began to run her finger over the lines, parsing the schedule of her group's classes. "Did you hear me?" Lex turned to her again. Only then did Lily really look at him. She immediately noticed the wedding ring on his right hand. She wasn't really interested. "I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand why you're talking to me about a beautiful day." "That's why it's a wonderful day, because I met you," Lex said with a smile. Lily just frowned. "Some cheap moves," she replied. Lex's face took on an interesting expression. He'd never met a girl who was indifferent to him and his appeals before. He was curious to find out what kind of girl he was that didn't care what he said or how he behaved. Cheap, and what are expensive ones? "It's not about expensive," Lily pointed out. "It's about how a married man allows himself to behave with strange girls. In your case, cheap." She turned and walked down the steps to the third floor. Another couple was about to start there. Lex ran after her, caught up with her, and fell to his knees in front of Lily. "It's not cheap," he asked with hope in his voice. "So stupid," she said. She wondered what else the man was capable of to get her to pay attention to him. "I wouldn't want to look stupid in your eyes," Lex said. Then he took Lily's hand in his own. She didn't resist. "I'd like to surprise you with something nice. Can you think of something?" "I'd do anything." "Anything," she grinned, looking into his blue eyes, and realizing that Lex was basically a good-looking and interesting man to look at. And not caring about his marital status or the age difference. For example, Oxy didn't care that Lily's father was married, and Brad didn't care about the 12-year age difference with Lily's mother. So why should she care about that? The girl suddenly decided that she also wanted to try to be happy, even at the cost of someone else's happiness. Anything, Lex confirmed readily. Then let's do it this way. Right now I have a couple of classes, and afterward, you'll take me for a boat ride on the river. Just keep in mind that I still have to be persuaded to go for a ride, because I can't swim and I'm not going to row. Lex nodded because he really was willing to do anything for the pretty student he'd met by chance in the university. Lily didn't wonder how many of those knave fools had fallen for Lex's charms. She simply enjoyed talking to him and forgot about her family's problems. While she was having an affair with a married man, it turned out that Joan had gotten pregnant by her new husband. She managed to marry Brad, to register him in her apartment, and also make him a full-fledged master in the house. She didn't even remember her ex-husband. She wasn't interested in his life. It was as if Fred had never been in her life. Lily was shocked. In addition to the fact that her father had a child with his young wife, her mother was going to have a second child at the age of 43. It was as if her parents had lost their minds, and with them Lily was going crazy and having an affair with a married man who had his own wife pregnant. Lily was confused, but she wasn't going to back down because she was falling for Lex hard, and that feeling played tricks on her a little later. Lily wanted love, to love and be loved, and Lex skillfully convinced her of his feelings and made her fall in love with himself. Lily went crazy in his arms, passion fogging her eyes, and she didn't want to see the reality of things. Only that day, when a woman with a big belly approached her, touched her hand and looked into her face with eyes full of pain and sadness. Lily felt like she'd been electrocuted. It was Lex's wife. She realized it immediately and without further ado. They say that a real husband and wife look exactly alike, and that was exactly the case here. The young woman, late in her pregnancy, looked a lot like Lex, almost like a sister. Only she wasn't a sister, she was his wife. "Why are you trying to take him away from his family?" the woman asked, and there was no aggression or accusation in her voice. It was as if she was just asking Lily about her mood. That's the voice you usually use to ask how you're doing. And not, how are you not ashamed to take a man with a commitment out of your family? I'm not trying. Lily didn't expect herself to start stuttering. How many times had she pictured this meeting with Lex's wife in her mind? She was sure the woman would lash out at her, try to tear her hair out or scratch her eyes out, just as Lily had once wished she'd done with her father's mistress. But it was all kind of quiet and sad. Then why are you seeing Lex? He has a family. He has a daughter growing up. He has a second child on the way. He's not himself. And I'm really afraid that he's gonna leave us and come to you. He won't, Lily said confidently. How do you know? He could make a decision at any time. His decision is not enough for that. Slowly, Lily replied, I'm not going to take him out of the family. I'm just playing with him. For you it's games, but for our family it's a tragedy, the woman said. And Lily didn't even ask her name. They just knew of each other's existence, but they didn't know the details. I'm sorry, Lily said quietly, and at that moment she was really ashamed because she was in the role of a separator, wanting to ruin someone else's happiness. She had no right to do so. I'll forgive you, but will Lex forgive you when he finds out he was just a toy to you? Do you care? Lily asked indifferently. I told you I have no claim on your husband, so why did you say that? The woman did not ask another question. Lily saw her huge belly, imagined how hard it was for her both mentally and physically, and her conscience wouldn't allow her to go that far with Lex. They were already overreaching in their relationship. He had even rented a separate apartment where Lily lived, and in which they indulged in the lovemaking that had become her first man. Lex was to remain in Lily's memory forever, but he was not to become her husband. You have a wife, you have a family, you have responsibilities. A little later, Lily spoke. I don't want to go on. I want you to go back to your wife. What am I, your ball? Lex asked grudgingly. You took it from your girlfriend to play with, and now you want it back. That's about right, Lily said. As much as it pains you, it's the way it is. Lex took offense, slammed the door, never paid his rent again. Lily went back to her mother's. But it was only then that the longing and despair hit her. Until then, Lily had not fully realized that she had truly broken up with the man she loved. And now this realization came and echoed painfully somewhere in the girl's chest. She cried both day and night, not wanting to study. Lily had almost failed a session, and then her mother gave birth, and the child was born not quite healthy. That's when another tragedy struck Lily's family. Brad couldn't stand the ordeal, left Joan, and the woman was left alone with the child in her arms. At about the same time, Oxy died of a worsening of some chronic disease, and Fred returned to his wife. Now they were reunited, raising together an older son, Fred, now 5 years old, and a younger son, Joan, born to her young husband. It seemed to Lily that she should have been rejoicing at the family reunion, but instead she suffered along with her mother and father. Her parents were going through their own tragedies. It wasn't easy for them, but only by being together could they find support in each other. Lily did not stay in her hometown, transferred to a university in Manchester, and moved there to live, study, and work. In her hometown, the consciousness that at any moment you could meet Lex hurt, and the girl decided not to test fate. If they had broken up, she had to go to the end, not play with fate. Lily left her parents and children in her hometown and decided to start a new life. A little later, she met David. Their life flowed in its own way. Lily periodically traveled to her hometown to visit her parents and brothers. And soon she got a job and began to visit her hometown even more often. Her attitude to David was twofold. On the one hand, Lily loved her husband, respected and appreciated him. But on the other hand, her husband seemed to her spineless and helpless man, unable to solve issues. David was always complaining about something, always dissatisfied with something. And Lily, no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, couldn't help but be irritated by the way her husband behaved. Only work helped her to cope with herself and not to file for divorce. After a few years of marriage with David, Lily realized that she had made a mistake by marrying him, but she had obligations to her husband and she didn't want to leave him just like that, going nowhere. She wanted to change her relationship with her husband, but at the same time the woman realized that she could not change the man and would have to adjust to her husband's character or divorce him. At one of these moments, when Lily was on the threshold of choice and wanted to file for divorce, so as not to torture neither herself nor David, another man came into her life. Lily, who was teaching English history, was constantly commuting to a neighboring town where she had been working for several years. That year she had more work in that town, and now Lily was lecturing to students from the first to the third year. Among those students was Tom, very arrogant and insolent type, who now and then tried to hook Lily with his reasoning. "Tom, am I bothering you?" once asked the guy Lily when all the students left the classroom and he remained alone, sitting defiantly on the desk, chattering his legs. "You to me, come on," the guy smiled. "I just don't like your way of teaching." "And what's wrong with it?" asked Lily. Slightly surprised by the young man's statement, none of the students had ever complained to her about her teaching style. On the contrary, Lily was always looking for new ways to interest the guys not the most interesting subject. And in addition to the history of the English language, she spent a lot of time on the basics of grammar. This like the students who might not understand something on the grammar lessons themselves. But with Tom, things didn't work out. "You think you know," the young man said a lot and then jumped down from his desk and approached Lily. "Actually, that's far from true. You know next to nothing about history, and you cover them up with extra information to distract your eyes." Lily almost choked with indignation. It was the first time a student had spoken to her like that, trying to convict her of ignorance of a subject she'd been teaching for years. Yes, she was still young. She had recently turned 24. Tom was 20 and the age difference was small, but how dare he talk to her like that, as if he considered her his equal. "Tom, let's respect the chain of command and not overstep reasonable boundaries," Lily said. She could feel her chin nodding treacherously. "I'm perfectly calm and I don't break any boundaries," the young man replied and smirked slightly. "It's just that you're young and bold and you think too much of yourself. Aren't you ashamed?" Lily was stunned by the young man's words. She wanted to take the textbook and slap the scoundrel on the head. but that would certainly be a violation of all ethical rules and regulations. So Lily tried to restrain herself. I'm ashamed. Tom smirked again. Then he moved even closer to Lily. You're just waiting for attention from young students, aren't you? Here's my attention, use it. I don't need your attention. You should spend more time studying, Lily said through her teeth. At that moment, she just realized that Tom cared for her, but didn't know how to approach the teacher, who was older and wiser than him. Tom looked for different methods, but just did not know how to behave properly with a woman who belonged to a completely different category. And the guy chose impudence and pressure. I would pay attention. Tom smiled, moving closer and closer to Lily. It's just not working out. I'm studying because of your class. I have the feeling that you're failing me on purpose so that I can't pass the session and get kicked out of the institute. Why would I do that? Asked Lily, as if nothing had happened. I don't know. Tom shrugged. You might have your own interests and your own arrangements. Maybe you want to hurt my father. He's not the last man in Leicester. Lily was tired of listening to Tom's ramblings, and she said confidently, Then we'll proceed as follows. I want to talk to your father. Tom shifted his eyebrows. Why? You rather talk to me? No, I want to talk to your father. I have no idea of who he is or how he's not the last man in town, so let's make this an excuse to get to know each other. Tom clearly didn't like Lily's suggestion. He shook his head negatively. My father doesn't need to know the details of my training. Lily smiled this time. So it's not about your father, but I'll talk to him because I'm tired of you always hiding my classes, and I have a problem with your grades too. What do you care about my grades? Tom stepped away from Lily and ran around the classroom. The boy clearly didn't like what the teacher was talking about. Such a thing. I am the supervisor of your course, so I have a direct relation to your academic performance. If you don't give me your father's phone number now, I will find him myself and call him to the institute. You know, Tom, I'd had enough of your antics, and I'm ready to call your father and talk to him. Tom tried to justify himself and his actions, but Lily was adamant. The teacher was really sick of Tom's behavior. She was sick of his antics, his words to her, which he did not hesitate to say in the presence of other students. Because of Tom, Lily's authority in the eyes of her students had fallen to a very low level, and the young woman didn't like it at all. Tom did not give Lily his home phone number, but the stubborn and persistent teacher of English history found out everything on her own. Through the dean's office, she called Tom's house, but no one picked up the phone. Lily called all the few days she was in town, but she never got through to Charlie. From the secretary in the dean's office, Lily learned that Tom's father was the vice mayor of Leicester, a very wealthy and authoritative man. But this did not embarrass Lily at all, nor did it make her change her mind. Tom continued to be insolent, rude to Lily, and she wanted to talk to his father by all means. Tom, on the other hand, was confident that Lily would not go that far. On her next visit to Leicester, Lily managed to get through to Tom's house. Tom's mother answered the phone. She listened bewildered and then informed her that she did not deal with such matters herself. Lily was surprised because she sincerely did not understand how a mother could be indifferent to the fate of her son. Soon, everything became clear. Tom's father himself called back to the dean's office, and Lily managed to schedule a meeting with the elusive vice mayor. The man invited him to his work because of his busy schedule he couldn't get away and come to the institute to talk to the curator of the group his son was studying in. I'm sorry, Charlie said very politely over the phone, but I don't have time for meetings and travel. I'm concerned about my son, and I'm even more concerned about his excessive behavior. I would love to talk to you, even treat you to some delicious Halte tea. If you could come to my place of work, Lily wouldn't turn down the opportunity to have a one-on-one talk with Tom's father. There was a lot of resentment building up inside her toward Tom. She'd been waiting in the waiting room for more than half an hour, and then she decided it was impossible to have anything to do with that family. Both were non-committal and very unpolite. Charlie was a thin man in a suit and glasses, about 45 years old. He apologized to Lily at length for the delay, treating her to candy and really good tea, which reconciled the young woman to the fact that she had to wait longer than she should have. I realize that my son is spoiled, Charlie admitted. He kept his eyes on Lily. It's my fault too. It's my fault to his mother. That's why I let the boy do too much. I spoke to Tom's mother, Lily said. She didn't seem offended, though it was strange to hear that she didn't care about Tom's schooling. Charlie smiled slightly and his eyes slid over Lily's face again. "What are you, Lily? Nicole is not Tom's mom at all. My son's mom died tragically, falling off a bridge. It was a long time ago, when the boy was only 10 years old, and it happened after she and I had a fight." Lily looked at the man puzzled. Charlie was in a second marriage, and the woman who had spoken to her on the phone was not Tom's mother. Now it made sense why she wasn't interested in listening to Lily's complaints. "I didn't know," she said in a low voice. "I'm sorry, Charlie, but it still doesn't give your son the right to behave like that in my class." "Lily, I'll be sure to talk to Tom. I don't want him to lose the opportunity to attend such a prestigious school. Higher education is very valuable these days, and I know very well the real value of a good knowledge, thanks to which you can settle in life and go up the career ladder." Looking at Charlie, Lily realized that he was saying all the right things. The man himself was well-educated, well-read, intelligent, and well-mannered, and it was a mystery to Lily why Tom was such an egregious scoundrel, unless it was to suggest that the guy might have a thing for Lily herself. "What if nothing changes?" Lily asked, depressed. "If Tom continues to terrorize me, I'll be forced to write a report on him, convene a committee, and make a decision on his expulsion from the university. The thing is that I'm not the only teacher in whose classes Tom behaves so defiantly." "I'll do my best to make sure it doesn't happen again," Charlie said. Then he said, "Can I see you again? Maybe in a couple weeks, and you'll tell me how my son's behavior has changed." Lily had no choice but to agree to the meeting. And what was wrong with Charlie's offer? An understandable desire and concern for her son. After this meeting with Charlie, a lot of things in the relationship between Lily and Tom changed. The boy no longer disrupted his classes, but he also looked at his teacher like a beast. It was clear that he was offended and angry at Lily, who dared to complain to his father. Tom had even told Lily about it once. After waiting until all the students were out of the auditorium, "Did you bring the complaint book with you?" he asked mockingly. And Lily felt uneasy. It was starting all over again, and she had only just come to believe that Tom had changed. "What do you mean, Tom?" she asked, trying to keep her composure. "About complaining to my father. He gave me a beating." Lily nodded. "And I'll complain some more. Maybe then things will go better at the institute." "Maybe," Tom said. "Maybe not. Did you know that my father's married?" Lily looked at her student in surprise. "What are you getting at, Tom?" "I don't give a damn about your father's marital status. That's why you and he have arranged another meeting, where you'll meet at a restaurant or a hotel." "Lily, she's covered in paint." And that didn't escape Tom's gaze. He grinned again. Lily wanted to say something in her own defense, but she couldn't think of the best way to put the impertinent man in his place. "I take it doesn't matter where I meet your father. It's about results, and I see that talking to Charlie wasn't enough for you." Lily didn't understand what Tom was getting at or why he cared so much that she was going to meet his father again. Why Charlie had even told Tom that he was planning on seeing her again. Lily had a lot of questions, and she really wanted answers to them. The next meeting with Charlie cleared things up. He asked Lily to address him on a first-name basis. He brought a bouquet of flowers to the restaurant, making Lily blush and resent him. "Charlie, I must be missing something," Lily muttered. "But why the flowers? This is a business meeting." Charlie, despite his intelligent appearance, turned out to be a real ladies' man. He pelted Lily with compliments and explicitly let her know that he liked her. Lily, not accustomed to communicating with vice mayors, and in general with birds of such flight, was knocked out of the rut, but could not help noting that she liked Charlie, even though he was 20 years older than her, even though she was married, and he was married and was the father of her student. Lily couldn't help herself. She liked the man, and she realized that even in her very first meeting with Charlie, there was an expression of this self-confidence and knowledge of what he really wanted out of life. That was all that was sorely lacking in her husband, and it was all Charlie had in abundance. Lily looked at the man, listened to him, and realized that she liked him more and more every minute. Charlie knew what he was talking about. He acted confidently and spoke to Lily as if he were sure she would fall at his feet. That was about right, because by the end of her second meeting with Charlie, Lily was willing to do anything to be near this man. even for a short period of time. What am I doing? She thought to herself. Lily, accepting Charlie's invitation for a third meeting. This time Charlie, who barely had any free time in his busy schedule, invited Lily to London to attend a symposium on architecture. Lily, far from construction and only from her husband, who knew some small nuances in the architect, immediately agreed because she simply could not refuse Charlie. She hadn't told Charlie that she was married. For some reason, she decided it would be unnecessary, so she'd withheld it, preferring not to tell the truth about her marital status. She'd taken off her ring because she'd recently had a physical exam and needed to remove all of her jewelry. She tucked the engagement ring into a secret pocket of her purse and left it there. Her relationship with Charlie had spiraled quickly. Lily didn't even realize that she had fallen into a swamp of betrayal. Each time it sucked her in more and more, along with the remnants of her conscience and common sense. Charlie turned out to be the very real man she would have wanted to be with, just as the vice mayor of Leicester was. Lily wished for David, but her husband was different. There was no changing, nor indeed no exchanging or returning. David was what he was. It was too late to change him. The only thing left to do was either accept what Lily had as a husband or leave David. Lily didn't want a divorce. She also didn't want to tell Tom that she had a husband waiting for her in her Manchester home from her constant business trips. Lily was too happy around Charlie. She wasn't even embarrassed by his marital status. Relations with Tom had gone sour. The young man, who had never heard of his father's affair with his teacher, was furious. Lily had no choice but to ask to withdraw her candidacy from teaching in Tom's group. She was accepted because it was very difficult to find a good teacher of English history at that time. Lily, who knew this, took advantage of her position and her privileges. Every time she came home, she had to look her husband in the eye. David had no idea, and Lily tried, after working in Leicester, to go to another city before coming home. She was too happy after her meetings with Charlie. Her face was glowing, and she was overjoyed to be with that man. Sometimes I want to scream at the world about how good it feels to be with you, she confided to Charlie. He laughed, pulled her against him, and kissed her soundly. Every move he made, every word he said, seemed magical. What was so special about this man? She didn't understand it herself. She just saw in him the very man she had once dreamed of as a young girl. And there was one other thing about Charlie. He was too much like Fred, Lily's own father. And no matter how hard the memories from the past were, she couldn't help comparing everyone to her father, whom her mother had once madly loved and idolized. You mustn't tell anyone about our liaison, Charlie warned. I have a reputation for myself, and I don't want everyone who can't be bothered to scratch my name and talk about the example I set for young people. I may not be the mayor, but I got a face to save. Lily swore that no one would ever find out about their relationship from her, but it wasn't clear to the woman how Charlie's son, for example, would know about it. He's a perceptive guy, Charlie explained, and besides, Tom can't forgive me for his mother's death. He thinks it was my fault that she jumped off the bridge. Did she jump off or did she fall off, Charlie? Tell me what happened. Maybe then I'll have a better understanding of your son and his true intentions. I don't want to talk about it, Charlie said in a voice that made Lily reluctant to ask him anything else about his first wife. The story of Charlie's first wife, Neely, was very mysterious. Several times in the conversation, Tom had mentioned his mother, but he had done so in passing and as if blaming his father for her death. Lily didn't have the details, so it was hard for her to understand what had really happened in Charlie's family 10 years ago. The only thing Lily was 100% sure of was that she was in love with Charlie. She became torn between two cities, one where she was a wife and the other where she was a lover. Lily tried to be careful. Charlie could not find out about David, and there was no way David could know about Lily cheating on him with the vice mayor of the other town. Of course, keeping the truth to herself was very difficult, but Lily tried to make sure that neither husband nor lover did not know of each other's existence. "You've been acting strange lately," David said one day, and her heart sank into her heels. How could he realize that something had changed in his wife? Was she giving herself away so much by her behavior? Of course, that was the last thing she wanted. Yes, Lily was strange and behaved strangely. She realized it, but she couldn't help it. Her feelings for Charlie had taken over her whole being so strongly that she could barely contain them. To restrain herself and to restrain herself in front of others. Even to Tom she no longer paid any attention, though he continued to be a sycophant, even though he was no longer the student supervising and Lily of the group. But as it turned out, it wasn't as simple as Lily had thought. She thought that by leading a double life, she was perfectly safe as long as she kept her own mouth shut. But she was wrong. On one of her last visits to Leicester, there was a knock on the door of the dormitory room where she was provided with a room by the university where she taught. Lily opened the door expecting to see a colleague from the institute or a roommate who might have run in for sugar or a shower bucket. But it was a completely different person. A well-dressed woman of about 35 stood on the threshold of Lily's room and looked at her, studying her. In addition to being interested and evaluating, her gaze was threatening, as if this bimbo knew something about Lily that she could use against her. Starting right from the doorstep. "Who are you here to see?" Lily asked, and she hoped that the pretty girl in the expensive dress and with the expensive purse on her shoulder just got the wrong room or the wrong address. "Lily, is that you?" "Yes, it's me." But before Lily could finish speaking, the gorgeous beauty stepped into her room, boldly pushed at the mistress of the room with her shoulder. Lily staggered back, the mark of the blow still throbbing on her shoulder. This woman clearly wanted to inflict pain. And then it came to Lily's attention who the intruder was. A blonde woman with large breasts and a mole above her upper lip, barely visible under a thin layer of powder. It was Nicole, Charlie's spouse. Lily realized this and turned cold. "Shall I introduce myself?" As if reading Lily's mind, the stranger asked, "Or have you guessed who I am?" "Guessed," replied Lily hoarsely and then coughed. "But it would still be better if you introduced yourself." She stretched out her hand with beautiful thin fingers, brightly striking stone on the ring, worn on the right ring finger and quality manicure. A perfect beauty that would give 100 points forward. Lily gently shook Nicole's hand, and the latter informed her that she had come for a reason. "You're sleeping with my husband, aren't you?" said the woman, carefully settling into the chairs that stood by the table in Lily's room. "Took the candy from you, opened it, neatly folded the paper, and put it aside." "I don't understand what you're here for," Lily said tiredly. She didn't want to fight, to be insulted, to have a beef with each other. She just wanted Nicole to go away and not make a mess of her beauty and her well-groomed net. "I'll explain it to you," she replied. "The thing is that you probably forgot that polygamy is forbidden in our country. Polygamy, by the way, is also forbidden." Lily was dumbfounded. How could she know that Lily had someone? Nicole was talking about a lot of courage for a reason. So she was implying that Lily had an official husband in another city whose marriage was registered according to all the rules of marriage registration provided for in the state. "Are you going to blackmail me?" with an indifferent tone asked Lily, who had already come to terms with the fact that Nicole knew everything. "Why not?" She smiled, revealing her snow-white teeth. "Charlie doesn't know about your husband, and your husband doesn't know about David. Do you think they'd be happy to know each other existed, Lily? Maybe they'd want to be friends or even be related?" "You're talking nonsense," Lily cut off, but then she saw a shadow slip down the side of Nicole's face. "And you're talking nonsense," she replied stiffly. "You sleep with 2 men, both of whom are unaware of the fact that they are being tricked. No decent and self-respecting man would like it, that behind his back, he cheats brazenly, gives horns, right? Or are you ending things with Charlie anytime soon? Or both my husband and your husband find out that you're sleeping with both of them? Or maybe there's someone else? A third man that I haven't had a chance to find out about yet." "No," Lily answered, ready to cry. She wanted so badly to turn back the clock and not get involved with Charlie. How could she have gotten herself into this mess, acting like a complete idiot who needed to feel passionate and now being threatened by her lover's legal wife? "Then you're staying with Charlie. I'll give you a week." Nicole left, and Lily went home the next day. On the way back, she thought long and hard about how she should have talked to Charlie, broken up with him. And then she got out at the train station and realized that the mere sight of the building made her sick for a reason. That's why the fatigue had set in and sleep kept calling. Lily realized what was wrong. Right from the train station, she rushed to the women's clinic, took a paid appointment gynecologist so as not to stall, and from the doctor instantly got to the ultrasound. The ultrasound showed a 5 to 6 week gestation. Lily was stunned, and she didn't know yet whether to be happy or not. But even that wasn't the main question. The most important question still unanswered was who was the father? Whose child was this? Lily, who had to talk to Charlie about the breakup, now couldn't help but tell him about her pregnancy. What am I going to do? Terrified, she thought on the way from the counseling center to the dormitory. Charlie had already called her, telling her that he would pick her up right after work at 9 o'clock. We'll have dinner somewhere, then we'll go to the Lotus. That was the name of their favorite hotel, where Lily and Charlie spent most of their time in passion. The penultimate time they'd met there, too. It had been just over a month ago. Lily was frantically calculating the time frame, but she realized it was a pointless exercise. She'd been intimate with both men. And whose child she was carrying? It remained unknown. She was floundering, not knowing what to do or who to tell. Charlie was very perceptive, and he would have no trouble figuring out that something was going on with Lily. David was less sensitive to his wife's moods, though he too had recently begun to notice that something was going on with Lily. She was nervous and, of course, gave herself away. Charlie frowned for a long time, looking at Lily as if analyzing her behavior. Then he remained silent, which was already a bad sign. "What's going on?" he asked, and Lily, who had decided not to tell her lover about the pregnancy, decided to turn the conversation in another direction. "Your wife came to see me," she said, "Nicole, a few weeks ago." Nicole. Charlie was clearly surprised. What did she want? Lily realized that she'd been wrong to bring up the subject of Charlie's wife's visit to her dorm. If Lily talked too much, Charlie would soon learn the truth about her marital status and her deception. And the young woman wasn't sure she wanted that yet. However, talking about the pregnancy was an even bigger risk. So Lily decided to speak up about Nicole. "She wanted me to leave you alone. Your spouse is aware that you and I are dating." Charlie looked away. Then he took a drink of water from his glass, looked at Lily and said, "I want to divorce her. I don't want to live with her anymore. So I prefer a divorce. We have no children in common. In terms of money, I will not hurt her. So let her know I don't care." Lily was stunned. She looked at Charlie and couldn't believe her ears. Should she be happy or not? Lily didn't fully realize, so she chose to remain silent, stirring the sugar in her teacup. "You're not talking?" Concerned, David asked. "Aren't you happy? I was sure you'd be happy to hear the news." Lily nodded. "Of course I'm glad. I'm just not sure you made the right move." "Everything. I did the right thing." Charlie wrinkled his nose. "I should have done what I did a long time ago." "You already have." Lily stared at her lover in horror. "Did you divorce her?" "I filed for divorce. Nicole is aware of my decision, which is probably why she asked you to end our relationship. Except she didn't do it for nothing, because I would have left her anyway, even if you weren't here." Lily was silent. It was definitely over now. She couldn't stay with Charlie, even though she loved him. And where was the guarantee that one day this man wouldn't decide that it was time to break up with her too, or until Lily herself was on a bridge and jumped off it out of great and painful love for this man? No, Lily wasn't going to let that happen. She doesn't want to leave Charlie. She doesn't want to leave her husband either. Charlie can't find out anything about the fact that Lily has been leading a double life all this time. It's been many months since their affair began, and it's time to break up. How could she just make sure the man didn't get mad at her? Lily didn't know what she needed to do to break up with Charlie in a normal and scandal-free way. "You're not getting divorced to be with me, are you?" Lily asked. David grinned. "You're afraid of me infringing on your freedom. Don't even get your hopes up. I want to be with you. Maybe not married, but definitely living together. What's wrong with that?" Lily froze, not knowing what to say to the man. Charlie was too bossy, too touchy, and too serious to joke with him. You couldn't tease him. And it wasn't right to tell the truth either. "No, I don't mind," mumbled Lily and looked at her watch. "Shouldn't we be getting to the hotel?" "I have plenty of time now," Charlie said in a happy voice. "I don't have to run home by the clock. We could go for a walk, like to the waterfront, and then we can go to a movie." "Charlie, you know I have to go to work in the morning, right?" Lily answered. I'm trying to be very careful. I can't afford to live like you. And tell everyone that I don't have to run out the clock." Charlie laughed and put his hand on Lily's arm. She felt awkward and then suddenly felt a wave of fatigue again. How unfortunate was her pregnancy. She just wanted to collapse on the floor and snort loudly, and Charlie was offering her all kinds of unthinkable things. "Honey," he said, "you don't have to work at all now. Why would you do that? If the vice mayor is your man, what if tomorrow you find yourself some younger, more attractive girlfriend? Or are you gonna put me on welfare too? Like you want to take Nicole now?" "Lily," Charlie said warningly, "don't talk nonsense. I'm not leaving you. My dear, I'm too old to be running from one woman to another. I have a grown-up son, in case you haven't forgotten. I want to settle down and spend the rest of my life with you. I want us to have children." Lily's insides clenched. She heard such long-awaited words, so necessary to her, but something inside her denied everything. She wanted to get up from the table, to avoid running far away without looking back. Something inside Lily was telling her that she was making a mistake, not telling Charlie about her pregnancy. But there was another thought in Lily's mind. She needed to go back to David and live a quiet family life. David won't forgive her for deceiving him for so long. And when he found out the truth that she was pregnant, and probably not by him, he wouldn't be happy. No, not that he won't be thrilled, he'll be furious. After dinner, they drove to the hotel, and there Charlie suggested that Lily stay until morning. She lay next to him, heard his breathing, smelled his scent, and could not believe that very soon she would be parted from him and would have to learn to live with the realization that he was not around, and no one would help her to solve financial and domestic difficulties. It was thanks to Charlie that Lily had been able to buy a car in Manchester, to renovate the apartment she and David shared, to get settled in a dormitory, in a room where no one else lived but her. Charlie had offered Lily an apartment in Leicester, but she refused because she was worried that while living in a separate apartment, Charlie would be with her more often and would find out that she had a husband. Although David didn't call often, he was still interested in Lily's life and work, so his call might not have come at the right time. Charlie would have heard the conversation about his mistress and guessed everything. In the morning, Lily was groggy and she barely made it to the bathroom, where she threw up. Charlie, who had witnessed the scene, was clearly concerned about the young woman's condition. "Maybe the restaurant had put out some bad food last night," he complained, looking at Lily's pale face. "We've been going there for so long though. It's our favorite place." "I must have eaten something on the train," Lily said. She wanted to fall into bed and lie under the covers. She was chilly. She didn't feel like going anywhere, and ahead were lectures on her favorite history of English. How possible it was to play the role of loving woman and serious teacher and future mother. Before Charlie realized her situation, Lily went straight to the train station after the lecture. She wanted to take the next train and escape from Leicester. But while she was standing on the platform, Charlie called her, and she couldn't help but pick up the phone. As luck would have it, it was at that moment that the dispatcher spoke on the speakerphone. "I don't understand." Lily heard Charlie's concerned voice. "Are you at the train station?" "I have to leave right away," Lily replied. "Mom called to say that Dad wasn't feeling well." Lily's lies were desperate and ugly. And why did she have to involve her innocent father? But she couldn't do anything else because she couldn't think of anything worthy. "Why don't I come with you? I've got a week of free time coming up," Charlie said. Lily nearly dropped the phone from his hands. It was the first time that had ever happened to him. Charlie had never once brought up the fact that he wanted to meet Lily's parents. "It's not worth it as a family matter," Lily replied languidly, and herself clutched in her hand a passport in which was enclosed a railroad ticket. "Father is unlikely to be thrilled if you come to meet him at the hospital." "I don't have to meet your father," Charlie objected. "I'll just be there for you. I'll be there for you, both mentally and financially." It was insanely hard to refuse, almost impossible, but Lily clenched her teeth and said, "Honey, let's not do it this time. I'll be there soon anyway. We'll see each other. Everything will be fine. My train leaves in half an hour. Charlie, I love you so much." Lily said it and couldn't believe she'd said it. She'd never made a declaration of love to Charlie before, so she wasn't surprised when he stopped talking abruptly and paused. "You're scaring me," he said. "It's like you're saying goodbye to me." Lily, what kind of confession? What's with the abrupt departure? Can you explain to me what's going on? Lily turned out to be right about Charlie being too perceptive to lead him around. Lily saw her train approaching the station and thought to herself that she had been right to lie to Charlie about her train leaving in half an hour. Charlie would be on the platform in half an hour, and she wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Lily ran into the carriage, handing the conductor her ticket as she went. Charlie said something else into the phone, but Lily didn't listen to him. She sat down in her seat and unplugged her phone, then took it into her bag and leaned back in her seat, covering her eyes. It was a good thing the carriage had seats. She could doze off without fear of catching anyone's foot and just sticking the headphones in her ears. I didn't want to think about Charlie. Once again, Lily was betraying someone close to her, and in the first case, the person close to her was her husband, and in the second case, the person she loved. Lily was confused, but she certainly didn't want to destroy her family. Even if she had Charlie's baby under her heart, it would be David who would raise him. Back home, Lily immediately changed her phone number. Then she suggested that David go to her parents' house in the city for a few weeks. David was surprised, but didn't refuse. He wrote a vacation request, and then he and Lily left together. The day before she left for her parents' house, Lily told her husband that she was pregnant. Now there was no way to retract her words, and Lily calmed down, leaned close to her husband, and prepared for the fact that she and David would become parents. From then on, Lily tried to pay less attention to her husband's shortcomings and more attention to his virtues. She no longer wanted to compare David with Charlie, to draw conclusions in favor of the latter. She also didn't want to regret the decision she'd made. David was there for her. Charlie was in Leicester, and there could be nothing more between them. Now that I'm expecting a baby, Lily said to her husband, I won't be traveling to other cities as often, and my job in Leicester is over. There are 2 more jobs left, but even there I'll close all my business by the time I get my maternity. David did not hide his joy, realizing that his wife would no longer leave him, but would stay close to him. And now they would have a normal family of their own. I'm glad, he said, because I have news for you too. I'm being promoted to head of the department, and that means that my salary will be higher, which means that we will live better. Lily smiled at last. Her husband began to change, and it happened just when Lily was all ready. I'm not sure that's even possible. 5 months into her pregnancy, Lily found out they were having a boy. I was so excited. David was genuinely happy. He looked at Lily with shining eyes. I'm going to have a son. I wanted a son so much, and I'm going to have one of my own. Lily looked at her husband funny. David rejoiced like a child. He didn't hold back his emotions, and Lily was pleased that she could fulfill her husband's dream. If it weren't for her dreams, in which she saw Charlie holding her hand, everything could be considered perfect in her and David's relationship. Lily realized that her conscience was tormenting her. She was not sure that she was expecting a child with her husband, and therefore, while she was deceiving a whole bunch of people, her husband and Charlie and her parents and her employers, for whom she had invented the story that her husband had forbidden her to travel to other cities in her situation. It was as if Lily had become entangled in her own web of lies. She was not happy about the pregnancy. It was proof that she'd done something wrong. The baby was already pushing inside. David had suggested they name their son Charlie. Lily was almost speechless when she heard this suggestion, but she asked her husband to think of another name for her son. Why don't you like it? David grumbled in a disgruntled voice. It's a good name. It's a good name, but I don't like the L in the name. It's the first letter in your name, David laughed. So your excuse doesn't hold up. My dear, let's stick to my opinion, Lily said affectionately, because it's my baby and I have a say in it. I don't argue, peacefully replied the husband. And the couple decided that they would name their son differently, but they would decide when he was born. Lily's greatest fear was that Charlie would come looking for her. He knew she was in town from Manchester, and his wife Nicole knew even more about Lily's life. Could she tell Charlie everything? And how might he react to the information? Often Lily thought she would meet Charlie in the city. People who looked like him kept coming into her mom's eyes, and every time everything inside her clenched with horror. She couldn't imagine what would Charlie say if she met him. It was hard to imagine their meeting, their conversation, his reaction to her pregnancy. Lily had delivered a healthy baby boy on her due date, barely taking him in her arms, a tired woman smiling after labor. And then she realized everything. Charlie was looking at her with barely opened eyes. The exact copy of her lover said only that Lily had obviously not given birth to a son from her husband. It was a good thing David had no idea what his wife's lover looked like. Otherwise, he would have realized everything too. And there's no telling how it would have ended. Lily was happy. She'd finally given birth. It meant that the worst was over. Now she had a healthy baby in her arms, and that meant a lot to her. The night after the birth, she fell asleep joyfully and with a feeling of deep relief, and was not against naming her son Charlie. In the morning, panic rose in the maternity ward. Lily didn't immediately realize what was wrong. She was generally detached from everything that was going on around her and tried not to take anything to heart. She woke up, stretched, and waited for little Charlie to be brought to her from pathology, where he was lying under the lamp because of jaundice. "Excuse me, what's wrong?" She turned half an hour after she woke up to a nurse sitting at a table in the hallway. "When they bring me my son." The nurse looked at Lily strangely, made a frightened face, and mumbled something inaudible. "I don't understand you. Where's the head nurse and what's going on here?" Lily. Someone approached her, gently touching her shoulder, and Lily turned around sharply. The head doctor of the maternity ward was standing next to Lily and had a sad look on her face. "The unexpected has happened. Your baby is missing." Lily grinned crookedly. "Are you kidding? A bad joke for a woman who has to nurse a baby." "It's not a joke. I'm so sorry. We've already put the police on alert, but so far we can't figure out how it happened." Lily's eyes went black. Yesterday she had held her little bundle of joy in her arms, seen his eyes, smelled his scent. And now what? How could it be? How could this happen? Lily asked the head doctor in a hushed voice. "This is not a bicycle that can be stolen from the entrance, and my baby was just born. He can't walk, so he couldn't have avoided it." "I'm sorry," the head doctor said again. And Lily clenched her hand into a fist and slammed it down on the table with all her might. The nurse sitting behind it jumped in her seat and looked fearfully at the women. "The police will be on the scene shortly. We are interviewing all the nurses." The head doctor didn't finish. "There's something else important." The nurse who worked in pathology disappeared with the baby, which means she was involved in the theft of the baby. The girl who took care of the infant was a commuter, and at her temporary registration address, no one was found. Lily was left without a baby on her first day of motherhood, and it was a real stab in the back for her. She was suffocating, hysterical, and behaving inadequately. Everyone was panicked, shocked, and horrified by what had happened, but nothing could be changed. "Why our baby in particular?" David asked, grabbing his head. It was the first time Lily had seen her husband crying, and it made her even more afraid. The baby was gone. It remained unclear where to look for him, and whether there was any chance of finding little Charlie at all. Lily returned home from the hospital as if in a fog. In the room designated as the nursery was a tucked-in crib with a canopy. Children's toys were piled in the corner. On the final table, stacked in a stack, were the baby clothes Joan had washed and put on before giving birth. There was no one to put things on now. There was no one to play with toys. Yes, and the cribs were left standing idle. Lily couldn't go into the nursery. It was like she was in a stupor inside. Tears now and then pricked her throat, but really cry and cried all her grief. She could only a week after discharge from the hospital. Before that, she felt incomprehensible and didn't fully realize what had actually happened. She just knew that she was supposed to be a mother, but never became one. Things were beginning to smooth out with David. Lily couldn't see her husband walking around sullen and looking at her like it was her fault the baby was missing from the hospital. The nurse was never found. Soon it turned out that she had been recruited through a good friend, and she had failed to bring all the paperwork required for the job to her employer. Lily went to the police every week, but heard the same answer, that there was nothing they could do. They were looking and looking and looking, but they couldn't find her because there was no one to look for. Lily made hysterics, scandalized, and one day heard from the mouth of one of the police officers' cherished word. It turned out that the nurse who worked at the time in the department was from Leicester. It was a familiar name. It hurt her ears, and 3 months later, After a fruitless search for a child, Lily traveled to the city where Charlie lived. Was Lily afraid to confront the man? No, she wasn't. It was as if everything inside had burned out. The past was beginning to be forgotten. Lily probably even wanted to see Charlie to tell him the truth. What if he, with his connections, could help her? The thought gave her hope. For the first few days, Lily wandered around the city in search of Audrey, who was the missing nurse from the pathology department with whom Lily's baby had disappeared. However, no matter where Lily went, no one knew that name. And her only photo, taken for her personal file at the city maternity hospital, was unknown to anyone. It was a week before Lily ventured to the town hall. She was astonished when she learned that Charlie was no longer the vice mayor, that he had quit his job more than 6 months ago and gone to an unknown destination. Lily, hoping for help from her former lover, left the city hall building with nothing. She dialed Charlie's number, which she kept and never called, and no one answered, so she drove back with nothing. She got home, then called David and told him everything. "I had a lover in Leicester. He got me pregnant, so you don't have to be stone-faced anymore. The lost child has nothing to do with you." Lily blurted it out, and then she got a punch in the face, a punch that was unexpected. It caused her legs to give out and she fell to the floor, her back hitting the edge of the table painfully. Her eyes went black, but Lily thought it was too weak a punishment for all she'd done for David. "Get out," he said. "I'm not going to live with a traitor, with a man who went behind my back sniffing around, with another man and going to bed with him." Lily packed her things and went back to her parents' house. The first time was not easy at work, and Lily went out to school as an English teacher. It turned out that she could not get along with school children as well as with students. The job was no fun, and soon Lily received a notice that David filed for divorce. But she didn't show up for the hearing, and they were divorced without much trouble. She did not enter into a relationship with anyone, trying to forget about everything that was in the past, and when she almost succeeded, she got a call on her cell phone from the police department. "Lily," asked a businesslike and masculine voice, "my name is Archie. I'm a police lieutenant in Leicester." Lily's heart jumped down, then crawled upward. She hadn't expected to get a call from the police. It became scary, but at the same time very reassuring. "Yes, it's me. Could you come down to the station?" "Why?" With a sinking heart, she asked. "We found a child just over a year old. It's suspected to be your son." Lily was in Leicester in a few hours. She and her father drove to the city in a few hours, and after a few more minutes, Lily was shown a photograph. "The boy is at a children's medical and social center. Rehabilitation center. How's he doing?" "He's fine now." The lieutenant was silent for a moment, then continued, "But the way he was living his life wasn't very happy. Do you know the name Nicole?" Lily felt the blood rush from her face. "Yes, I know her. This woman lived in the village of Finchley Road in a private house with a boy who was supposed to be your son. Only things were a bit tricky. Nicole lived in the house and the boy lived in a booth and was chained up." "Where?" Lily's eyes widened, thinking she'd imagined Lieutenant Archie's words. A baby, a kennel, and a dog chain. It all jumbled in Lily's head. "In a dog kennel and on an iron chain," the lieutenant answered, still looking nonchalant. No one had ever suspected that Nicole had a child because she lived on the outskirts of town and no one came to see her. The mailman brought a letter to the house, and in the yard he saw this. No one knew about the child, and only thanks to the vigilance of the letter carrier about the baby became known to the local district police officer. He has already appealed to the city and we conducted a check. Your case is still on our radar, isn't it?" "How can I see the baby?" Lily asked. Tears welled up in her eyes, her chest tightened, and she could barely cope with her emotions. "We can go with you to the rehabilitation center now, but you will hardly be able to take the baby. You'll have to prove that the baby is yours. There will be some procedures, including a DNA test. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." "I'm sure it's my baby," through tears said Lily. She couldn't hold them back. She was sniffling her nose and couldn't suppress her sobs. "What makes you so sure?" Archie asked, making some notes in his papers. "Because Nicole is Charlie's ex-wife. I had a child with him, and that woman had a reason to take my son." Together with the lieutenant, they drove out to the rehab center, and soon Lily saw a child gaunt and sad, sitting far away from the other children. The baby looked to be a little over a year old, and Lily's heart squeezed at the sight of the small and helpless little man. She held out her hands to him, but the boy didn't move. "You what?" One of the workers of the center approached them. "The little boy is completely unsociable. Apparently, he's been living in very difficult conditions. He's poorly developed, scared, and uncommunicative. It feels like he has been beaten or treated badly." Lily cried and then snuggled into the lieutenant's shoulder, so little Charlie wouldn't see her tears. Archie stroked Lily's back, then said, "I think that's enough for today. Let's go to the squad room again. Ms. Nicole is in there. She's giving an explanation for having someone else's baby. I think this woman will be able to explain something to us." Lily looked at little Charlie and then nodded to the lieutenant. "Okay, sure." Lily didn't immediately recognize Nicole from the groomed and well-groomed woman. She had turned into an old woman who didn't seem to be living the right lifestyle. Seeing Lily, Nicole grinned crookedly. "Lucky you, you bastard. You found it." Lily didn't know what to say to Charlie's ex-wife, because she hadn't expected to see her. She expected to see Charlie Tom, but not Nicole. "Why did you take him?" Nicole turned her nose up proudly, as if she were doing Lily a huge favor by asking her a question. "Why did you take my husband away from me?" Nicole asked a counter question. "First, I took him away, and then I threw him away like a useless thing. Do you know what happened to him when he found out you lied to him?" "I don't know what happened to him. He left me, and then he decided to leave me for you. Tried to look for you, to find out where you'd gone. Then the doctor told him you were pregnant. I thought he had a reason to find you and bring you back. I mean, he was really excited because he thought the baby was his. But I told him the truth, and he still wanted you back. He wanted to raise your child, but he couldn't. At some point, he packed up and left for the UK, and your offspring lived with me in a dog box and on a chain like a dog." Nicole laughed, and her laugh sounded like the laugh of a madman. She took a breath, then tried to forget about Nicole's words, and asked only one question. "Had Charlie gone to the UK?" "He did," Nicole grinned. "And you thought he was waiting for you?" Citizen Nicole interjected into the dialogue between the two women, "Lieutenant, so you confirmed the fact that you initiated the theft of Citizen Lily's child?" "I have nothing left to lose." Nicole laughed. "Yes, it was me. It was my idea to take the child from her, like she took my husband from me before. That's what she wants, the bastard. Citizen Lily, I don't think we'll have any trouble establishing parentage. You'll take the baby, and we'll deal with Nicole from here on out." Comrade Archie has turned to Lieutenant Lily. "I can get the phone number of Charlie's relatives through you. I want to find him and explain everything to him." The lieutenant hesitated. "I'm not sure about that, but I'll try to help you." Lily felt energized. She had her son back. She could also get back the love of her life. After more than a year, she felt hope for the first time that everything would still be okay. And without that hope, it was almost impossible to live.